Hi, welcome to the Drama-Free Living Podcast with Dennis and Lisa McIntee. And Lisa, we got a new setup today.
We do, and I love it.
It is great. So listen, if you are listening on the app, check us over at YouTube because you're going to notice a difference. And I kind of like the setup. We're not standing, we're sitting.
Like the table.
It's a really nice table. It's perfect. So I think it'll be fun. For the next couple weeks, we want to kind of tackle this idea of stress and what stress is, what it isn't, sort of the benefits. Now, at least
Stress is a big deal right now. We're overstressed. We're under stress. We don't know what to do with our stress. We don't know if we're too stressed. And just kind of getting some understanding, some clarity on what stress is, how it affects our lives, and what we can do to take stress, lasso it, and make our lives better.
Yeah, and Lisa, what was great is we had a conversation in our roundtable forum about this whole idea of stress. And we're going to kind of bring some of those things out. And it was fascinating how leaders address stress and how they deal with it and some different things. So we want to kind of cover that. And listen, we'll also put some in the show notes, some information about the roundtable. So if that's something that you would find helpful to go, gosh, I could really be around a group of people that really get me and can help me grow and develop. And it's sort of our premier flagship program that we offer and probably the one that we have the most fun with.
Yeah, it's the one we have the most fun with. And I truly think it's the one that we see the most difference, the most change, and the most growth in the individuals and the companies that we work with.
Yeah. So, Lisa, we're going to talk about stress, but you wanted to bring out just some of the maybe like stress is good, is it bad?
Well, today, predominantly in the podcast, we're talking about when stress is a good thing.
Okay.
So when stress is a good thing, because most of the time we think of stress and we think of it as negative and detrimental, and we're just going to bring forth the positive elements of it.
Yeah.
But before we do that, we have to bring balance, of course. And
of course, since you're on the podcast, it's balance. Right? If I'm on the podcast a little out of balance, then that's why we love you around. You help kind of bring some balance to that guy.
First, we're going to talk about the detriments of stress, the detriments of chronic or prolonged stress.
Okay, right.
So because sometimes people they're just deep into it and they're stressed and they're thinking, I just need to get through this and it's going to be okay and I'll be fine, but they don't understand what's happening in their body, just kind of gritting through it until the end. And so some of the detriments are stress. First of all, there's cardiovascular issues.
Okay.
And most of us, we know these things, but we're just going to go over them.
Just go over them real quick.
So it's an increased risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, and other cardiovascular problems.
Don't want that.
We don't want that. Weakened immune system. Do we want that? No. It makes us more susceptible to illnesses and infections when our immune system is weakened, and when we're under chronic stress.
And almost sometimes chronic stress is like when we don't know how to deal with the stress as it comes and it builds up and it sort of becomes chronic.
Right.
And so I think, we want to kind of help people catch it before it even gets to some of these things.
Right, because it'll build up and then we'll hang on to it without releasing it. Because you could be under a 3-month, 6-month, a year of stress. But if you can find those opportunities to release the stress and lower your cortisol levels and kind of bring yourself down to a relaxed state, then it won't build up in your body.
Yeah, so we don't want that to be you, okay?
And next, mental health disorders. So it's stress is a major contributing factor to different mental health disorders, things like anxiety, depression, burnout, things like that.
We need to do a podcast on brain health because we've been starting to study some of these things, so I think that's coming.
We can talk about brain health, but since we really aren't the experts
we're bringing an expert. So let us know if you would like us to bring in an expert and talk about brain health. That could be fun.
That could be fun. We would enjoy it.
We would.
We would totally geek out on that.
We would.
Cognitive impairment. So when you're under prolonged stress, this cognitive impairment, it impairs your cognitive function. It leads to difficulties in concentrating, in memory, and also problem solving.
Oh, what did you say? What?
Sleep disturbances.
Yes.
When you're under chronic stress, you can't sleep. You literally cannot sleep. It disrupts your sleep patterns. It leads to insomnia and other sleep disorders, which just makes you feel more stressed because you can't relax. Another one is digestive problems.
Ouch.
So IBS, indigestion, those kind of things. Stress affects that.
We could get into a graphic piece here, but let's not.
It's fascinating because
Yeah.
there's the whole concept of the body keeps the score.
Yeah.
And when you're under different amounts of stress, it affects different areas in your body. And oftentimes your body, it will stress or fears, anxiety, different things that are internal issues, psychological, they will show up in the physical body.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that you would have digestive issues when you're under stress, because before you even realize you're under too much stress, your body's going to start showing it with things like digestive
Well, and
issues.
you're really good at this, because I think we were talking the other day is that you had some pain either like in your neck or somewhere, and you knew it was a sign of stress. And so I think sometimes, instead of just treating some of those symptoms, is we got to go back to the core. And so almost like your body keeps the score. So your body's going to know some of those things.
Absolutely, because when I have pain somewhere in my body, I sit and think, okay, where is this coming from? Is this, sometimes it can be a positive thing. Like if you're going to go run a half marathon, you're going to feel pain afterward. And honestly, as long as you did it well, that's a good pain, because it's a growth pain. But then you have other pains that are negative could be from stress or fears or just all different gamut.
And I think we're going to
things.
get in that in some later podcast episodes about the body keeps the score. But,
Yeah, absolutely. Weight gain and weight loss is
I need some weight loss.
not this way, not with
Right.
chronic stress, but it's an overproduction of your cortisol levels, and it slows your metabolism, which causes you to increase your weight gain, and also stress can affect your appetite. So that's why you could either have increased or decreased weight gain, and it's not a natural. Sometimes people are their doctors are saying you've got to gain weight. You've got to keep your weight on. And others of us have the other problem.
I wish my doctor would say, Dennis, you have got to get some more weight on.
Muscle tension and
Yes.
pain is another one.
Yes.
We just talked about it. It's when you're stressed, your muscles tighten, and it leads to tension headaches. It leads to physical pain. And everybody feels it in different places. I know back when I was in college, I would get a really tight neck. My neck would tighten up, and it would radiate all the way up into the bottom of my head. And then I would get bad headaches. And it was all because I was all tight in my neck and everything. Now I can tell when I'm under stress, it's no longer, I don't tense up in my neck. I tend to tense up more in my lower back.
That's cool.
But I, kind of identifying, okay, when I'm under stress, where does my body feel it? Is super helpful. And too much stress or prolonged stress, there's only so much tension your body can handle before it really affects you, and you start having to suck on the ibuprofen and all the other things.
That's never good stuff. Yeah.
Okay, decreased libido.
This is the worst one.
Decreased libido. So prolonged stress leads to a decrease in sexual desire, and it can lead to sexual dysfunction.
Get it fixed. Get that stress fixed right now. Right now.
Social isolation.
Yeah.
When you are just stressed, you are worn out, you just want to go home, you want to take a nap, you don't want to be with people, you have strained connections with your families and friends and your coworkers.
Yeah.
And these are very typical things, signs of prolonged stress and the negative side of stress.
Right.
But we really want to talk about why stress can be a good thing.
Because it really can, if you know what to do with it, if you know the story that it's telling you.
And you keep it in balance.
Absolutely, right? And so we want to kind of talk about why stress really is good, right? One thing, it really creates this motivation, right? Because in a sense, stress is just energy. And this is why the chronic stress, if you just keep it pent inside and you don't have a way to like express it and get it out, and we're going to talk about trusted ally and some of those things in later podcasts, but it's going to show up in some of these chronic things. So if you just look at it as I'm stressed, it's, hey, this is just energy. And I think a little bit like you kind of reframe it as a natural response to a challenge, right? Stress is a natural response and almost like it's normal. Right? It's like there's this point of stress is like sometimes people think, well, I shouldn't feel stress. Well, it's absolutely normal.
Maybe you should feel stressed because
Absolutely.
it is a normal aspect of your day.
Yeah. It's just what do you do with it? And so that's really what in the next couple of podcasts, we want to talk about what to do with it. It also kind of creates this sense of urgency. It can really help your productivity, right? Because it kind of gives you this heightened awareness. And a little bit, it kind of beats procrastination. I feel stressed. I just got to get it done. I procrastinated. And you know what I realized about procrastination, Lisa, is it does not take me a long time to get stuff done. But man, it takes me sometimes a really long time to get ready to get stuff done. right? And so you just kind of use it to create this sense of urgency, or it kind of defines your expectations, right? It's kind of, you feel the stress and go, okay, what's my very next step, right? Because if you look at it, stress as a story, really, stress is just a story. It's a story that's something that's going on internally, and what's the story telling you, and what do you do with it? I think the worst thing that we've seen, especially as we talk to different leaders at different levels, sometimes middle managers, they just feel like, oh, I'm just stuck, right? It's like I can't do anything. I got these rules, these regulations, these policies, and I'm just stuck. And that's the lie. You're not stuck. And then, almost think of it as like, hey, this is just a challenge, not a threat. Or if I see it as a threat, it determines like how I relate to it. And then it kind of gives you this idea of, it shows you have limited time. So it kind of helps you determine the essentials, right? I only have like 8 hours in a day to work, or, I only have the weekend, 2 days to get things done. And it kind of helps you know when you're overcommitting, and also helps you delegate a little bit. So using it for motivation and productivity and time management, super helpful.
I love that, because that is truly when I get the most done, when I realize I'm up to a deadline,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, okay, the plane leaves in 2 hours and I'm not packed yet, and I have to leave in 30 minutes to get to the airport.
I'm glad that didn't happen this week. It's
No.
awesome. It never happened.
But you know what?
It never happens to me.
We made it on the plane. We did it. We crunched everything into that space of 30 minutes, and we were able to get there. And
Isn't it funny?
into
Like work typically expands to the time you've allotted for it.
It 100% does.
It really does, right? And it's amazing how fast you can get stuff done. And sometimes you can use stress to your advantage. And that's what we want to talk about. When's it good? How do we use it for our advantage?
So for us, it's really good when we've got a flight to catch and we need to take care of the house, take care of the dog, take care of packing, and make those last few phone calls, because we know we've got a hard stop.
Yeah, it really
And when
helps
we
us.
have a hard stop, it's a forced stress, which is really a positive thing.
Yeah, and so we want you to look at it as a positive thing, not a abnormal thing.
Another benefit of stress is enhanced alertness, increased
Yep.
awareness.
Yep.
So stress triggers the release of hormones,
Love it.
like adrenaline. Mm-hmm. And what adrenaline does is it increases alertness. It kind of like, we're on full alert, eyes wide open. Our body's preparing ourselves to respond to the perceived threat. And that's the natural chemicals that go in our body. Well, so jumping on an airplane, getting all packed up, that's not a perceived threat, but it heightens our alertness. It heightens our awareness of, okay, what all do I need to get done?
Yeah.
What do I need to be aware of? All of the things that could jump in and stop you from what you want to do or what you need to do. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like your hearing is acute, and your eyes and your eyesight is more clear.
Yeah,
But stress also heightens the awareness of potential risks and challenges. Mm-hmm. So it prompts us to be more mindful. It prompts us to be more proactive.
Sometimes more careful a little bit.
Sometimes
right?
more careful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, there's times you can be so at a time crunch and so stressed that you lose that productivity, that you lose that carefulness, which we talked about in the detriments of stress, and the loss of cognitive function. But healthy stress, and stress that is not prolonged or not pushed to the limit, it really allows us to have that heightened awareness and to be really proactive in our decision making, because we know we only have so much time.
Well,
so we're going to make the most important decisions in this moment for this item.
Well, and almost when you think of it this way, it's how do I use stress as an advantage, not a disadvantage? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm feeling stress. How is this actually an advantage, not a disadvantage?
Right.
And when you think about it that way, it almost becomes a tool. Oh, and this is a very helpful tool.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite tools. When I know that I have to get something done, I will set up boundaries in my life to create a sense of stress to push myself to be able to accomplish something. And that's especially if it's something that maybe I'm dragging my feet on or I don't want to do, but I know I'll set it up. So I've got a phone call with one of our team members about a particular project that she's project managing. And right now the ball is in my court, and I've got to go through and check through all of the line items on this project that we're doing. And I know it has to be done before I get onto this call.
Yeah.
And so setting those boundaries up, setting that forced stress.
Yeah.
But in that way, it's a positive stress.
It's really your advantage. It's your superpower. When stress is your superpower.
Yeah. And so also with moderate stress, the sympathetic nervous system is activated. So
Okay.
that gives us an increased heart rate, right? And that's more blood flow, more oxygen to the body, more oxygen to our vital organs. And that is what actually helps improve our cognitive function and improve our alertness because we've got more oxygen. It's just like going on a run, and the oxygen flowing to the different parts of the body that are needed at that moment. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and so we really want to just kind of flip the switch a little bit in that not all stress is bad. Right? Chronic stress, yes.
Right.
Okay, where you're going to
moderate stress is absolutely beneficial.
Yeah, and it's actually normal, and it actually can become an advantage. And so another idea, Lisa, I was thinking about is this adaptability, resilience kind of creates that, right? Because when you're stressed, it allows you a time to figure out some new coping strategies. Now, the next podcast can be really fun because we got like 15, 20 coping strategies that we kind of want to run through that are kind of cool hacks.
Right.
But
to kind of help lower that prolonged stress.
Yeah. So you sort
of make it more of a moderate.
And this is part of like when you share it, and we're going to talk about a trusted ally coming up, is that when you share some of these things, you get new strategies from other people. I'm always looking for different hacks, different strategies, right? So, but you never look for that unless you're under this stress. And it also develops sort of this mental toughness. And I think, you get this new confidence because even things where like you have a setback and you feel stressed, well, you can learn from your stress.
Yeah.
Right? Even looking back and go, okay, I was stressed about that yesterday. What is it telling me? Right? What is it telling me about me? What is it telling me about the situation? What is it telling me about the boundaries I create or the expectations that I have? And you can actually use it for learning. But if you think it's abnormal or you're frustrated or in the shoulds about stress, you cannot learn anything. So it's like, hey, what do I learn from this? And it's this idea of like also increased flexibility. It's like, so Lisa, I read this where palm trees can actually withstand 145-mile-an-hour winds.
And we've seen that whenever there's a hurricane.
Yes.
And Jim Cantori is on and he's focusing on the weather. And you see those palm trees
they're like bending over.
Bent way.
Yeah. And here's what I thought about. I thought that the winds don't break trees. It's the lack of flexibility that break trees. Okay, so think about that like even in our own lives, right? We have all these outside circumstances, the winds that are blowing against us, but if we're not flexible, we're going to break. And how many people break not because of the wind, but simply because they're not flexible.
And we see that here in South Carolina when we have a snowstorm or an ice storm. Our trees are not accustomed to bearing up under the weight of all of that ice or all of that snow. And then when we get our once every couple year ice storm or snowstorm and the branches are really heavy and it's bowed down. And
they break.
They break because they haven't built up that flexibility that they've known that they've needed for the weather for the area. And so that's a really good example of that lack of flexibility.
So we just want to encourage you, like create some flexibility, like really work on your flexibility, right? Because it's not it's not these outside circumstances that are breaking you. Many times it's your lack of resilience and flexibility that breaks you. And that's an inside job. It's an internal job, not an external job.
And that's really a good point too, is we can increase our ability to handle stress if we incrementally allow ourselves to be put under more stress, just like a tree in our area, if it begins to have to wear under those elements, gradually it will begin to strengthen itself. It will begin to adapt because we're very adaptable creatures as humans and as, wildlife and trees and all of that. We're adaptable. God just kind of wired us that way to adapt to our circumstances. And so if we incrementally allow ourselves to be under a little bit more stress and we learn how to handle and cope with it, we become better. And a great example of that is I know when we had one child, we were like, whoa, this is
way too much.
This is a lot. And it was a huge adjustment. And then we had a second one and we were overwhelmed. And then we kind of got used to it. And then we had a third one and we thought, okay, we cannot handle anything else. This is it. And then the fourth one came along.
And then we said, that's enough. We're buying a television. We're going to find something else to do. We're done having kids.
But it's a really good example that's why I really feel for mothers and fathers that have
twins or triplets,
oh my gosh, or multiple, because then
and they have it all at the beginning, the very first. Oh my gosh!
You
Yes.
have it all at once, and you don't ever get that chance to ease into it.
Yeah,
And
so we just want to encourage you, don't start with Category 5 winds, right? Start with tropical storms, maybe like a gale warning. Just don't jump right into Category 5. And what you want to see is that you want to see this is building flexibility and resilience. And it kind of becomes this catalyst for growth and development. And so you almost think about, I'm stressed. Well, this is an opportunity for me to learn, grow, and develop some flexibility.
Absolutely. Another benefit of stress is it increases our critical thinking and our problem solving skills.
I mean, I become more critical?
No, your critical thinking.
Critical
your
thinking.
So stressful situations
Yeah.
oftentimes require individuals to think critically
Yeah.
and to find solutions quickly
Yeah.
because that's going to help alleviate the stress. You've got something coming up, you've got to find a solution right away.
Yeah.
And that contributes to the development of our ability to problem solve, and it
Yeah.
increases our problem solving skills. And this is super, super important. It prompts our brain, right? Our brain is like, okay, I have got to prioritize these tasks.
Yeah.
That's just like when I'm getting ready to pack for the airport. It's
Here we
like,
come.
okay, first thing first, I know that I need to pack these things, or if I forget to take the garbage out, not a big deal. If I forget to bring my suitcase, big deal. Big deal. There are certain things you can buy when you're on the road and other things you can't. So that's what goes into the suitcase first, because that stress helps us to prioritize. It helps our brain to think about it.
It's good.
It helps us to allocate our resources efficiently. So we are like a smooth running machine when we're getting ready to get into the car to head to the airport. We're like, okay, this is our list, this and this and this, and we tag team. We are efficient. We're, as before.
Que sera, sera.
Exactly.
And things might even be forgotten, but man, we're stressed. We make that list and we're using it for our advantage.
Absolutely. Also addressing the immediate challenge.
Yeah, that's good.
What is your immediate challenge? So if we are like, got to get on the plane, the immediate challenge would be to pack.
And almost like, don't worry about some of the secondary challenges. Like they're going to come.
They will come.
They will come, right? But like, let's do the very next thing, and you kind of use it to prioritize.
And it actually helps you figure out steps, like what is the next step that you have to rise up to. And then once that one is done, okay, what is the next step? And it becomes very linear at that point.
Right. And you almost go, wow, thank you, stress. That was helpful. Yeah, that stress helped me because now I know this is the very next thing I need to do.
Absolutely. Also is becoming more adept at identifying the most relevant information. So this is something that EMT workers, they come to the scene of
a stressful situation.
A stressful situation could be an accident, an emergency, and they know, okay, what is the most relevant information that I need right now?
Yeah.
Do I have a pulse?
Yeah.
Is there breathing?
Is it bleeding?
Is there alertness? Is there bleeding?
Yeah.
Where's the bleeding? How much? I mean, there are certain things that become incredibly relevant, and it helps you focus on those things that are just the most important, filtering out distractions. That EMT worker does not care that there are people crying. I mean, they do care, but that's not what's relevant. That people are crying or screaming, or there's precarious situations, or maybe that they're in the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah.
There is a stressful situation. There's an emergency, and we're going to filter out the distractions so we can pay attention to the most relevant information.
Yeah, good.
And then that compels us to streamline our thought processes.
It does.
And then we can utilize our available resources judiciously. We only have so much energy, but when we can focus it so clearly, then we can use those resources most judiciously, and we don't waste the energy.
Well, and I think that's the thing, Lisa. It's like you only have so much energy, and energy is a depleting resource.
Absolutely.
And so stress uses energy, so use it for its benefit and realize it has a shelf life.
Absolutely.
To it.
So a movie that we enjoy, it's been a while since we watched it, was Apollo 13.
All-time favorite movie.
And one of our favorite, I know, Dennis, this
All-time
is your
favorite scene. If you've been in my workshops, you probably have heard me talk about this scene.
So with Apollo 13, this is this happened in real life, and also there's a great movie. But so their 4-day trip back to Earth, the carbon dioxide levels became very dangerous.
Yeah.
And they had to scrub the carbon dioxide out of the system.
Yep.
The problem is the scrubbers were round.
Uh-oh. Say it is not so.
And the replacement parts were square.
Say it isn't so.
So in the movie, I don't know what they did in real life, but basically, I can't even remember the actor's name. He came in with a box full of all of these random parts that were available on Apollo 13 and said, okay, we've got to scrub the oxygen. We've got to scrub the carbon dioxide. It's too high, and we've got to fix it. We've got this much time, and this is all we've got. And he dumps the entire box of these parts on there.
Yeah.
And he said, we have got to figure out how to scrub this carbon dioxide out of the system only using these parts, because what we have is round, that it's currently not working, and what we have to replace it with is square.
Yeah.
And so at that point, they judiciously utilized their available resources, and they streamlined their thought processes, and they filtered out their distractions, because they had a journey to save, and they had people to rescue.
Well, and you know what's fascinating? And it doesn't show it in the movie, but it's like it doesn't say in the movie, but it's like nobody complained. Nobody complained about being so stressed. Now maybe but it's like they had a job to do, and they just used it for their advantage.
They might have complained later.
Maybe
but
so,
they,
but who knows,
they just focused and did what they needed to do.
And they used that stress as an advantage. We only had so much time.
That was a beneficial use of stress.
Love
now,
it.
probably once they were done with that scenario, I'm sure they were exhausted, because they depleted all of their energy just trying to solve this issue.
Yeah.
But at the time, that stress was what they needed.
Yeah. And Lisa, I think the last thing that we want to and let's call this when stress is your superpower, right? It's like, so one way it becomes a superpower is use it for performance improvement, learning. So Yerkes Dodson law suggests, I just found this, is that there is an optimal level of stress for peak performance. They say too little stress leads to complacency, and too much stress can cause impairment, impaired performance. Mm-hmm. And so there's almost this balance. And so, Lisa, it's why we created the stress converter. So we haven't talked about that yet, but it's going to be our free gift to you today. So we'll put the link in the notes, but it's this idea of, it's a 5-step process where you can use to take a concern, right? Take something that's concerning, that's a stress, and use it for creativity. You transform your concern into creativity. And so it's a 5-step process, and we'll be talking about that. But the stress converter, it's for you. Okay, so just go to the show notes, just click the link, and
it's free.
We wanted to give it to you.
Pull it out and try to be able to get an idea, balance out your stress, and figure out how can I convert this from a negative, detrimental thing to positive energy.
Yeah, and so it's almost this moderate. There's almost this idea of like an optimal stress level, right? So that you're really high alert. And so, but if you have too less, it's like it kind of leads to complacency. And I was kind of thinking about it, is like, do you learn more from an experience or a book? Like, I typically learn more from an experience than a book, right? It's like I read about it, but man, there's nothing like, right? I can read about don't put your hand on a hot stove, but man, there's nothing like me taking my hand and putting it on a hot stove and having that experience.
Now, I learn from books if there's an experience incorporated in the book, and it's almost learning from someone else's experience.
Yeah.
Because it talks about how this situation played out and what happened to them. And I'm thinking, okay. But if it was actually me during the middle of putting my hand on the hot stove, I'd probably learn faster, but it would also be more painful.
Yeah, there's a faster learning to that experience, right? And so the difference is that there's an emotion attached to it, where in a book it's just pages. Unless I create some kind of emotional attachment. So having this emotional attachment, sometimes this stress goes, wow, I really learned from that. So it really, Lisa, as we kind of walk through this, stress really is a superpower. So I'm curious, like, what's your key takeaway from today?
I just appreciate that stress is beneficial, because it truly does help us get the things done that we need to get done in the time frame that we have allotted to us. That's when we allow it to not overtake us and not to be chronic. Yeah. But when we allow it to be moderate, and we allow our stress levels to go up and down naturally the way we were designed. Yeah,
I think for me, I'm going to continue to and maybe even enhance this idea of stress is my superpower. So almost like I'm feeling stress. So what is it telling me? And then how do I use it as an advantage, not complain about it being a disadvantage? So almost like I feel stress in this area. So what's it telling me? And then how do I use it for my advantage?
And that's basically what the stress converter is.
It absolutely is. So download the stress converter. It's there. It's our gift to you. And we'll continue this conversation on stress. We're going to get into some stress hacks and some different ideas. So it's been fun, Lisa.
Yep.
So we'll see you next time on the Drama Free Living Podcast.